Hello everyone and welcome back to another developer update for Ronin 2072. Before I get into this video, I would just like to say happy holidays and happy new year. I hope y'all are having a fantastic time with family. I know I did. It was pretty fun. We ate a buttload of food. But anywho, let's get right into the video and see what we've been working on for the past month. We've got a lot to talk about, but the first thing that I wanted to kind of cover is something that I completely forgot to cover in the last video, which is the cover system. The cover system is a super simple system that just allows you to snap to objects. It doesn't even snap you, it literally just changes your animation so that you kind of have a nice smooth feel when you're behind cover. It also kind of incorporates a sense of stealth and it just looks cool. The thing is, the one thing that we really wanted that was important with this system is smooth and no sort of snapping, unlike games like The Division and stuff where you have to press a button to go into cover. Instead, you are just simply go into cover and that's it, and you can remove yourself from it without a problem. There are a couple little finicky things with it that I will improve in the future, but for now it works and you can basically take cover behind anything. Another thing that I took some time to work on is the HUD. Typically the HUD is something that is on the screen at all times, which I feel like if I put some time into it, it's definitely worth it. And we did a little bit of detail work. What I ended up adding in is a parabola effect to the widget, and I also added in some movement. So while you're surge dashing or moving around or jumping or falling, the HUD would kind of move around in certain directions or zoom in and kind of give this cool effect that kind of engages the player a little bit more rather than just a static HUD. Of course, in the future, we do want to change the entire HUD and all of the interfaces, actually. Just improving them, making them so much better, and just making them aesthetically consistent, because right now they're kind of all over the place, which is a big issue, but it works and it gets the point across and testers can kind of understand what they're looking at, and that's the most important thing. Another thing we worked on was combat. One of the important things was the basic swings. The basic swings right now are still really heavily in development, but we've got some sort of combo system going, which is really nice. Now you can continually swing and continue swinging, and it does different animations, and you can kind of reset that combo whenever you want to. We also have strong attacks, but the animation is still being worked on. There's a lot of issues with it, but we're working on that. We also added in a super cool surge dash attack, which kind of gives you more variation in your combat. It's a very quick stab forward, which you kind of have to aim a little bit, but the nice thing is we can add some more knockback to that attack and do a whole range of things. So all of these attacks will have different purposes, and you can play around with a bunch of different combos, which is super cool. We also added in a critical hit system, so you can actually do headshots with guns and even potentially throwing knives. This is still being worked on. I only got the basics in, but in the future I'll be able to add weak points on larger enemies and stuff, and that'll be super, super cool. Abilities have been a super big focus for this month. I improved the grappling hook a bunch. I made it way more fluid, I made it smoother, and I also made a system where you can just zoom in with it and aim where you actually want to place your grapple hook. And it also has an edge detection system, so you can kind of just aim towards an edge and you'll go right on the edge. Now, there's a lot of things I still want to work on in terms of the grapple hook, including things like slingshots, so you can slingshot yourself across an edge and get to a different spot, and just a whole range of other things that need to be improved on it so that it's actually usable. For now, it works and it gets the job done, but it can be even better. The Zipline also got some improvements. It actually works a little better than before, but it's still not perfect, as you can tell by the fact that our animation isn't really there yet. All this is doing is really just attaching yourself to a spline rather than the actual cable itself. As you can tell, there's an arc to the cable. Something that I'd also like to do is kind of add some physics and motion to the character while you're going down, just to make it feel more lively, because right now it feels super static and it just doesn't feel like a zip line. It just feels like I'm being teleported from one end to another, which isn't great. So a lot of improvements that still need to be put into place. Like I mentioned before, we've been doing a lot of work on abilities, including adding new ones in. We've added things like impulse grenades, actual explosive grenades, and we've even worked on a EMP pulse that kind of goes around in a radius and basically just shuts down electronics. So you could use this against drones or any sort of enemy that would be using electronics rather than a human. So there's a lot of cool things that we want to put in terms of abilities, so you have a lot of different playstyles while you're playing Ronin, and I think that'll be super cool because you can just start a whole new run and you just find new abilities that you play around with and combine different playstyles than the last game that you played. On top of that, we kind of have a new system as well, and this new system is utilities. So typically you'd have 3 utilities, which is the flashlight, the scan, and the zoom. So all of these would have their own little purpose and kind of assist you while you're playing the game. A lot of testers noticed that you do get into darker areas, so we were like, okay, let's add in a flashlight. And then we kind of went ahead and added a few more things that assist you while you're playing the game, so you can kind of understand where enemies are and where your contract might be, rather than having to run around for hours on end without knowing where your contract is. So we went ahead and did that. We added a nice little wheel that you can kind of select different utilities from, and each time that you select a new utility, it sets it as the quick switch kind of ability. So if you use the scan, then you can continue just clicking the V key or the left key rather than having to hold the key to bring up the wheel, which is nice. So pretty straightforward. The flashlight is a flashlight. We also had to add a turning system in so that you can turn in place. That wasn't something we had before, but now we have it now. So you can simply just look around you and your flashlight will continue working. One of the things that we had to do is while you're running, the flashlight turns off when you look at your character because it wouldn't look right. So it usually follows where your camera is rather than the player's head. We did try to attach it to the player's head, but it just looked super finicky. It just didn't work properly. So in terms of gameplay and making it actually feel like a utility, we made it attached to the player's camera. On top of that, the scan ability will scan around a radius and ping enemies for you for a short duration. Right now the cooldown is like 3 seconds, but in the future the cooldown will be like 15 to 20 seconds, so you can't spam the scan ability, and it's just there to kind of give you an idea of where enemies might be. The other thing is the pings don't actually follow the enemies, so if there's any enemies that are patrolling or anything like that, all you'll see is the ping as to where they were when the scan hit them, rather than it following them. So there's a few downsides to it, but it does definitely give you an idea as to where enemies might be. Something we also worked on is the new Stim pack animation. Now when you use the Stim pack, you actually just take it out of your pocket and you stab yourself near the heart so you can heal yourself. We added a few little quality of life things, including once you reach max health, you'll instantly just stop the Stim pack animation because you don't require more health. And sometimes you might not want to continue it. You can actually cancel it by attacking and stuff. So there's a couple of nice things to it. Of course, if you get hit while using it, it does cancel it as well. So there's this bit of sense where you have to be careful where and when you use it. We also now have a new level designer, which is super nice. It basically allows me to focus on gameplay and other stuff while somebody else might be focusing on the world. Of course, I do have to do the environment art, which is the step after blocking out and doing the level design, but at least now gameplay in the world will be much better and focused on by one single person, which is very important in a game where it's kind of focused on platforming and combat and figuring out where enemies are and all that kind of fun stuff. This is actually one of the first areas that he's working on, which is the abandoned tower, which is kind of in the abandoned district since we have different districts in the world. This area looks really cool so far, but it's still work in progress. You can see there's cranes all over. It's got like 15 floors, and it's basically like a playground for a free runner. It's super fun to play around in, and I'm sure that once you get your hands on it, you'll enjoy it as well. On top of getting a new level designer, I also wanted to create new tools for that level designer to kind of streamline the process. And one of the things that I've been doing, especially for our buildings and stuff, is basically create blueprint actors that you can control. One of the things I did for the cranes is actually add a system where you can change the height of the crane, you can change where the crane hook is, the cable length, and all this kind of fun stuff super easily, and it's relatively optimized as well since it's just one object and you kind of have instance meshes for the supports and all that. It is an amazing workflow, and I honestly recommend anybody who's working in UE4 to do this stuff. It's like a prefab. Well, it basically is a prefab, but you can play around with things and you can adjust it to however you want, and it also keeps your level outliner really clean rather than having like 100 assets just for one crane. Instead, you just have one, and it keeps it nice and neat. That's it for this devlog, though. I hope you have a fantastic week. I think we are nearing the last week of the decade, so I hope you have a happy new year. Make sure you don't drink too much. And yeah, I'll see you in 2020. It's going to be pretty crazy. We have a lot of cool things that's coming up for this year, including a trailer and hopefully even the release of the game for late 2020. Other than that, hope you have a fantastic day. I will see you later.